Hello and welcome to a tactical history of Liverpool. After losing the away leg 5-1, Liverpool had to pull off something incredible at Anfield if they were going to progress to the next round of the European Cup. Something incredible was just what Bill Shankly had planned though. With a heavy fog in Amsterdam giving him plausible deniability, Shankly still believed Liverpool were far superior to Ajax. Candidly, I thought that at our best we might have beaten them 6-0, and I said so, he recalled. More impressively, he managed to get everyone else believing too.
Because even though it was 5-1, we're fully convinced that we could beat them by that margin at Anfield. I was dead confident that we would win at Anfield.
But Shanks came back and Shanks had everybody believing. He said, we're going to beat these. He said, with the help of the crowd and everything. He says, we'll beat these, we'll overhaul that, the 5-1 defeat. He says, and we'll go through. And being as a cop like then, being as a Liverpoolian, you believed that was just going to happen. You didn't think any other thing about it. And it brought the people in the droves to Anfield on the night.
This was how compelling Bill could be and how the supporters had complete faith in him, remembered Peter Robinson. Ajax were an outstanding developing team, and Bill managed to convince 54,000 people that we could beat Ajax 6-0 when they came here. We filled the ground for a game that was lost from the first minute. He really was a tremendous personality and character. People had great belief in him. Shankly's ability to get people believing in the club helped in more ways than just the atmosphere, though. In a time before massive advertising or television deals, a football club's income was based on their ability to get people through the gates. So Shankly managing to convince 54,000 people to turn up to a dead rubber was a significant financial boost for the club. English football attendance has generally peaked in the post-war years, but were on the decline by the 60s. This was partly blamed on societal changes. Televisions were a rarity in 1950, but by 1961 were in 75% of households, and they were just one of many new leisure activities that could be enjoyed from the comfort of your own home, while the shortening of the working week weakened the industrial link with football. There was also the problem of greed, though. Football is often considered the working man's game, and this is certainly true in terms of who plays and supports it, but it's not true in terms of who controls it. Most football clubs are, and always have been, businesses parasitically living off the loyalties of their local populace rather than the social institutions many think they should be. From 1953 to 1977, admission prices rose by an average of 4.2% a season, and each season attendances fell by an average of 1.4%. In a 1962 Football League survey, supporters also complained about how uncomfortable the stadiums were. Is it really any surprise that more and more people prefer to stay home and watch the TV, or do the gardening, when the price of going to a game, where you would then be crammed into a pen with thousands of others, kept growing? Liverpool were an exception to English football's waning attendances, and their figures wouldn't peak until the 70s. They were not an exception to its greed, though. Just like every other club, Liverpool were focused on getting as many people through the turnstiles as possible, with little concern for their safety or comfort. With a capacity of 24,000 on the Kop, any movement in the crowd would reverberate across the terrace. The sights of the old swaying Kop looked dangerous enough to modernise, but according to those who used to frequent it, it was much scarier when it didn't move. At least when it was swaying, that meant there was space to move around in. If it was still, then it was likely because the supporters were packed tight like sardines, unable to move, often lifted off their feet out of their control. Shankly had convinced the capacity crowd to come down to Anfield for the Ajax game, and partway through a surge in the crowd caused a crush, with many supporters spilling out onto the grass to escape. Hundreds were injured and 34 were hospitalised. It wasn't the first time, and wouldn't be the last, that supporters would be laid out on the side of the pitch gasping for breath. By 1968, Shankly was publicly talking about Liverpool moving from Anfield. I would rather stay at Anfield, of course, but the comfort of our followers is something that concerns me deeply. These people, who are prepared to stand in all weather throughout the season, in all manner of climatic trials, deserve a reward. They deserve a seat. If we could build a 100,000-seater stadium at Aintree to be shared with Everton, then I would be tempted to move from Anfield. Liverpool played another big match of the weekend, drawing away to league leaders Manchester United. 4 days later, they sent out the same starting 11 to face Ajax. There was one change to the team they had sent out in Amsterdam, with Gordon Milne returning in midfield. This allowed Ian St John to move back into attack, with 22-year-old Bobby Graham dropped. Liverpool would line up in an unusual yellow and black kit. At this time, the custom in European competition was that when there was a clash of kits, the home side would change. However, as Ajax's two-tone strip clashed with both Liverpool's red home kit and their white away kit, Liverpool had to dig out this third kit. The last time Liverpool had worn a yellow kit was against Accrington Stanley in an FA Cup clash a decade prior. With one eye on the return leg in Liverpool, Ajax's undefeated record had finally come to an end that Sunday, falling to a 2-0 defeat to ADO Den Haag. They made 2 changes to the team that had faced Liverpool a week prior. Pete Kaiser returned from injury to take Cees de Wolf's spot on the left flank, but just as one man came back, another dropped out, as Wim Surbier picked up a knock in that game and was replaced by Barry Hulshoff in defence. With a strong lead to protect, Ajax were more defensive than they were in the first half of their home leg against Liverpool, but not as defensive as they were in the second half. They played in something more resembling a 4-3-3 than they had in Amsterdam, with Klaas Nuninga dropping back into midfield. However, they weren't pulling those 3 attackers back behind the ball as much as they had in that first leg. This ensured they posed a threat on the counter, while perhaps given more space to do so thanks to Nuninga getting moved back into midfield. Forwards showed greater fluidity. Johan Cruyff would drop off or move wide, while Sakswart and Kaiser took the opportunity to come inside into the middle. Ajax were struggling to impose themselves in attack though. They often seemed to be trying to move the ball on too quickly once they won it back in a bid to catch out Liverpool on the counter. Cruyff in particular was repeatedly getting caught offside by Liverpool's defensive line. The Dutch side looked much better when they were willing to slow the game down, weaving passing patterns or dribbling in attack. Ajax's relative lack of attacking success was also partly because Liverpool gave them little space to breathe. Liverpool were more aggressive than usual, continually stepping up to tackle or intercept the ball, looking incredibly focused. Rather than dropping off to regroup, Liverpool were looking to get stuck in and win the ball back as quickly as possible, in need of possession if they were going to overhaul Ajax's lead. This was a riskier approach, but they seemed to be making the correct decision each time. Liverpool also fared much better in the midfield battle than they had in Amsterdam. It obviously helped that in Milne they actually had a natural midfielder there this time, but they also had Roger Hunt dropping off to join them, while Tommy Smith and Willie Stevenson would push up too. After struggling in the first leg and in a natural position, Stevenson was excellent here despite still playing at left back. He was quick-minded defensively, but was keen to join in offensively too, coming inside into the midfield or pushing on down the flank. Chris Lawler would also look to push forward on the opposite side. Further forward, Ian Callaghan and Milne would look to inject some pace into the game. While as usual after a quiet start, Peter Thompson began coming across to the right to get involved, and was soon a major threat. With Thompson switching sides, Callaghan would sometimes shift across to the left instead. Pressure was mounting on Ajax, forcing them back, yet they managed to hold strong. They defended well, timing their tackles and interceptions, but also weren't afraid to do what was necessary, fouling Thompson to break up the game when the wing was starting to build some momentum. Liverpool's players were looking sharp and dangerous, but they were unable to get the goals they needed to actually mount a comeback. Stevenson appeared to pull one back for Liverpool at the start of the second half, winning a tackle in midfield, then racing forward to receive the ball and finish in attack. But if anything, he was too keen, the goal disallowed for offside. It was instead Ajax that would break the deadlock. Thompson gave the ball away with a poor pass, putting Ajax immediately on the attack. Smith was drawn across to confront Kaiser, and Lawler tucked in behind him to cover. However, the right back failed to track the run of Swart behind him, so Kaiser easily knocked the ball over to him. Ron Yates was pulled across to cover, which left Cruyff completely free in the middle. Swart passed to him and he made it 1-0, 6-1 on aggregate. It took Liverpool just 5 minutes to equalise. Following a corner, Ajax didn't really commit to a counter-attack, easily handing the ball back to Liverpool. With no one pressuring him, Yates was able to simply pick out a pass over the top of Ajax's defence for St John to run onto, before squaring it to Hunt to finish into an empty net. Liverpool continued to put Ajax under pressure, with Thompson becoming more direct, running straight at the Ajax defence, yet it was Ajax who would take the lead again. Liverpool once again had possession of the ball on the attack following a corner, but gave it away cheaply in midfield, just as they had for the first. Ajax burst forward on the counter, with Kaiser knocking the ball through to Nuninga making a run through the middle, and he squared it to Cruyff, again left free in the middle, to finish. Minutes from the end, Liverpool would equalise again. Thompson picked up the ball in midfield, pushed forward, and slipped a great through ball to St John, and with his first touch he poked it on to Hunt to get his second. It was enough to maintain Liverpool's unbeaten home record in Europe, but not enough to see them through. The match would finish 2-2 on the night, 7-3 to Ajax on aggregate, seeing Liverpool knocked out much earlier than expected. Ajax's victory over Liverpool announced their arrival on the European stage. The first leg could have been written off as a fluke due to the weather, but their ability to hold strong against a relentless Liverpool team showcased they were a force to be reckoned with. The Liverpool game was for me an important moment to be acknowledged and recognised internationally, said Rinus Michels. Not only the first game, because that could have been an accident with the weather conditions, etc., No, the performance we achieved in Liverpool under bad circumstances. I've never seen such a hectic situation. We drew that game 2-2 and never really had problems. For me, it was the proof that we were at the international level. They weren't the finished article, though. Ajax would be knocked out in the next round by Dukla Prague. They drew 1-1 in Amsterdam, then took the lead in Prague, only for Anton Pronk to give away a penalty, and Fritz Sutikau to score a late own goal. In reaction to the defeat, Pronk was moved into midfield, while Sutikau was sold to PSV Eindhoven. He would be replaced by Velibor Vazovic, partnering 20-year-old Barry Hulshoff in defence. The addition of Vazovic allowed Ajax to play an offside trap, while the Serbian would also push up into midfield to help in possession too. When I came, I preferred to play a kind of total football, he said. I played the last man in defence, the libero. Mikkels made this plan to play very offensive football. We discussed it. I was the architect, together with Mikkels, of the aggressive way of defending. I did the small things, like make an offside or stand in the wall to make a gap for the goals. These personnel changes were part of a gradual pruning of the team, replacing ageing or poorer quality players with better alternatives. Gert Bowles, Anton Pronk, Klaas Nuninga, Benny Muller and Theo van Duivenbode were all phased out, replaced by Barry Hulshoff, Gerry Murren, Heinz Stoy and Ruud Krol. As these players got used to playing with each other, they became comfortable swapping positions, with the defenders pushing forward into attack and the attackers dropping back to cover for them, in a bid to break down the mass defences Ajax were coming up against. In the 4th or 5th year, I tried to find guidelines that meant we could surprise a little those walls, said Mikkels. I had to let midfield players and defensive players participate in the building up and in the attacking. When I saw Serbia going forward, I knew I had to go back, recalled Swart. I didn't have to be told, and after 2 years, everyone knew what to do. It comes from playing a long time together, said Hulshoff. This way of playing, we grew into it. We didn't realise the ball was going that fast, but we were changing position so much. We knew exactly what to do because we'd known and played with each other for 5 years. We could adapt and fill in for each other whatever we did. Finishing touches were made in 1970. Finding themselves outmatched by rivals Feyenoord, Mikkels would further strengthen the midfield by changing from a 4-2-4 to a 4-3-3. The signing of Johan Neeskens then introduced pressing to the side, as he would go energetically sprinting after opponents in a bid to win back the ball. With Vazovic marshalling the back line, Ajax would step up to catch their opponents offside, taking them out of the game, then go chasing after the others with the spare man to deny them space. After winning the Eredivisie 4 times in a row, Ajax would finally lift the European Cup in 1971, and followed it up with another 2, winning in 1972 and 1973 as well. It had taken them 5 years, but gradually they evolved to become the best side in Europe. Just like Ajax, Liverpool were a very good side in 1966, but they would have to wait to taste success in the European Cup. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel. You can get updates on what I'm doing by following on Twitter and Facebook, links are in the description, but most importantly by supporting Holding Midfield on Patreon. Without financial support, I can't justify the time it goes into making these videos, so we keep the channel alive while also receiving access to premium content. Thanks for watching.